Can lightning strike twice in the same spot? Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I'm looking at Hell House LLC 2, The Abaddon Hotel, made in 2018. Just got released not too long ago, and it's currently on Shudder. Now, if you've watched the channel over the last few days, a few days ago I reviewed Hell House LLC, which I had never heard of before until I saw this sequel start popping up as an available watch. And all right, I'll give this one a whirl, but before I do, I'll watch the first one. And I was absolutely blown away. It was so much better than it had any right to be. And it was genuinely scary. It was just masterful in how it presented everything. For a low budget mockumentary found footage kind of movie, it really sold it, and very, very surprised. So I was looking forward to the sequel, and I didn't best way I can put it is I enjoyed this movie, but it did not live up to the original by a long shot. It was still an okay movie, but it's coming on the heels of a great movie, and I can't help but feel a little disappointed in that one. So let's get into the categories, and let's get a little deeper into this to figure out why it didn't work. So as always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot of this one I gave a 14 out of 25. The big thing about this is it really didn't offer a whole lot that was new. I'm going to have a deep dive discussion video. I mentioned in the last one I didn't want to until I saw this one, and then do a kind of a combined deep dive spoiler-filled discussion video. So I definitely will be, and I'll be addressing... There's some elements of this movie that was doomed before they even clicked record on the cameras, and I don't know if there was a way out of it. Perhaps there was. This was a tricky thing for them to have tried to pull off. So I'll be discussing that more. But the plot, as it was, they moved forward a few years, and it presupposes that the documentary, i.e. the first movie, has entered into the collective conscience or conscious of the grander society of the world. It's now in the zeitgeist. The world knows of the Abaddon Hotel, and it moves on from there. There's some elements of there, though, with an investigative reporter possibly wanting to try to find evidence in the hotel of the original owner's malfeasance. And so she gathers a group together, including the editor of the first movie, the documentary, because if the house is a maze, who knows it better than the person that has edited hours and hours and hours of footage, documenting every turn from one room to the next. Joining them is a psychic that is wanting to start his own TV show, so he's kind of trying to make his mark, and so on and so forth. There's a few other people that are involved. The problem, I think, well, there were several problems, but ultimately what it came down to was it just wasn't terribly new or terribly interesting, and there were a few character reveals there that were broadcast a million miles away, so none of the reveals really worked there, but the characters still kind of pulled it off. The plot was halfway decent for what they were trying to do, and some of the scares were good still. So I gave the plot a 14 out of 25. This was, I would say, good, about average, maybe a little above average, but definitely not exceptional. The Intent, I gave it 13 out of 25. This really didn't deliver nearly as many scares as the first one, but it did deliver some scares, and they were somewhat good. I mean, a few of them were actually really, really good. I don't want to keep comparing it to the first one. I kind of want to review it on its own merit, and the deep dive will go more into kind of comparing them. But yeah, some of the scares, some of the elements of this movie really did kind of fall flat, and it brought it to that level of average 13 out of 25. That's about average. It's middle of the road. It's good. It's not great. That's not bad. Definitely not bad. They really painted themselves into a tricky corner by even thinking that they could make this movie in the first place. There's a reason that horror sequels so rarely work, at least in terms of standing up to the originals. The acting I gave a 14 out of 25. This was really peculiar. As this movie kind of goes on, it starts out fairly benign. It sets the stage, and it leads into all the events that cause the people to walk through the front door of the Abaddon Hotel. And then it kind of has some moments of reflection and so forth as the events unfold around them. So, although the actors were very, very good at delivering fear and trauma, especially trauma, what they fell down with was simply sitting down and talking to each other. So you had this weird kind of bookend of bad acting with really good nugget in the middle. They really sold the performances once they were in the hotel and they were interacting with things and going through things, and even towards the end when things were kind of summarizing, they delivered good performances. But then going for full circle and any reflection on elements of safety and so forth, and them just talking to each other, fell down. It was just horribly stilted, and they were definitely not talking dialogue to each other. They were remembering lines and reciting them very robotically. It was very distracting. But balancing everything out, that landed somewhere in the middle of mediocre. I gave it a 14 out of 25 for the acting. And the technical, I gave a 16 out of 25. And here's why. The scares were still good. The camera usage was still good, but it didn't use as many tools in the toolbox as the first one. The first one had the benefit of doing things like the strobe light maneuvering and so forth. It really utilized the filming style of the found footage in the first-person viewpoint to great effect. And this one, I would say that it really didn't. It still had some good scares. The technical things that it pulled off well, but it didn't incorporate the filming style elements to the benefit of the movie. It simply just was this way, and then the script progressed. And there was also a bit the makeup effects and some of the physical effects were getting to the point of cheesy a little bit. I think that it just kind of came down to direction and editing and timing. They really should have known when to have an actor stay 20 feet away and keep on them for 1.5 seconds, as opposed to put them 5 feet away and stay on them for 4 or 5 seconds. It was a pretty big difference. And so some of that was starting to get towards the cheesy level there. Overall, where we wound up with this one was a 57 out of 100 points, a passable, decent, good, definitely okay to watch, low to medium budget horror film. And there's really nothing wrong with that. This does come on the heels of an amazing movie, but would I say that people shouldn't watch Hell House LLC 2, The Abaddon Hotel? Absolutely not, especially if you like the first one. There are definitely elements of the first one that make it into this one and do it somewhat well. Should you be expecting the same level of quality? Also, absolutely not. You really shouldn't. You should manage your level of expectations and just enjoy it for the romp that it is. Ultimately, I think the movie wound up being the quality representation of what I expected out of the first one. So, yeah, that's should about do it. I am going to have a deep dive. It's going to be full of spoilers, and it's going to be going more into why this was doomed from the start before they even sat around the round table with the script. So that should about do it for this one. I really appreciate you joining me, and next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.